just come back from the MOT, and I don't know whether you can see this, there's actually smoke coming out of the ignition, so something in there is not happy and it's getting very hot, so I shall investigate further. Found it. It's whatever, it's basically this plug here, one of the bottom two pins going onto them for, oh fucking hell, that's burning hot. So yeah, something very, very wrong with this headlight combination indicator and horn switch, so that's annoying. This van has a sense of humour, so it's actually on the way back from the MOT that it decides to try and set fire to itself. The bottom pin here, that one, there's some sort of resistive heat fault because it's melted the case. That's what all the smoke was. So I might open it up out of curiosity and see what it is, but basically I need a whole nother one of these stalk units. I think it's the same as Montego Maestro, so fingers crossed I can get another one and it won't be too expensive. Just opened it up. I could see, actually, before I took it apart, I could see someone's already been in here before me, because I've made that sort of mark there, but the other two were someone else. And up here as well, so somebody's definitely had this unit apart before, so I'm not going to blame Lucas or LDV. Basically, there's been a fault here, resistive heating fault or something weird like that, and it's just cooked up. Actually it's that one there, isn't it, which is down in there, that's the one. So I don't know what it was, it could have been dirt, could have been like salt water, although unusual for a van to go underwater like that, but yeah, never mind. New indicator assembly has arrived. This one has a fibre optic cable to light up that bit, presumably, which my other one never had, so maybe this is a step in the right direction anyway. I'm not quite sure where it plugs in, but I'm sure I'll work it out. I think it's a fibre optic. Can't think what else it would be. Morning again. I can't remember where I've got to on the videos because it's been a while. I think last thing I was revelling in the success of having an MOT and then bawling my eyes out with the comedy timing of the van, which decided to catch fire on the way home from the MOT station. Catching fire sounds a bit dramatic. It was just this indicator switch which was not happy and decided to cook up. This is the little pad which the indicator arm slides across, and I think basically it was just making a bad contact and making a resistive heating fault. So rather than the current going through it nicely, it was either stuck on a bit of carbon or something happening, got very hot and basically melted. Hence the smoke, hence me being in a bit of a like, oh for fuck's sake, vans. But anyway, fix that. Then, in another comedy of errors, well, the indicator fix wasn't the simplest to start with, because the new one I got, if you put the hazard lights on, the near side lights and near side repeater wouldn't work, so I basically had to take the new one apart, which is quite complicated, and there was an explosion of springs and things, and it took me ages to work out how to put it back together. But that all works. But then the next problem, I went to go and fill up with diesel. I parked it on the forecourt, went in, paid my money, came out, tried to start it, click, 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 no start. Basically, the alternator fails to charge, I think. Basically, the battery goes flat, hence why I've got this. It's not anything being left on, it's just, I think it's the alternator not charging. So I've left it on charge overnight. Hopefully it'll start up, and I've got my meter, and I'll just probe the positive terminal of here to the chassis, or I'll do it at the battery, maybe that's easier, just to see whether I'm getting 12 volts. Well, no, not 12 volts, it should be about just over 14 I think on most engines, and we will do that. I've also noticed there's some rubber dust and the belt seems quite slack, so it could be it's just not getting enough drive. I doubt it, because I can't understand why it would just start getting slack and slipping, and I've never heard the belt scream. So I'm going to start it up, hopefully it will start. I shall then get organised with my meter and try and work out what the hell's going on. Did not expect that. Yesterday I was so close to buying a new alternator off eBay for 50 quid. But that little test there would suggest it's charging. That's incredibly odd, and at the minute as I speak I'm kind of baffled as to what's going on. I'm confused. Why would it discharge as I was driving it? It basically, what happened was I went to the supermarket. It started first time up there, and I parked up. I went in, I got my shopping, I came out, then I drove from there to the petrol station, filled up with diesel, came out, started it, or tried to start it, it wouldn't start. On the way home, after I'd bumped it with the help of some little old lady from the cashier's desk, which was comedic in its own right, I got it home, and as I was driving the lights were getting dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, so it was definitely at that point not happy. I've charged it up overnight and now it would appear the alternator's working. So I've got absolutely no idea. The only thing I can think is that when it's running, perhaps the belt does slip. Well, that wouldn't make sense. This might be one of those monitor and report back type issues. Maybe people in the wise, like YouTube comments, can give me an idea of what else to test. I'm gonna tighten up that alternator belt just because I might as well. It'll like scare the vehicle into thinking that I'm gonna fix this, and therefore it might behave itself. It looks like, well, I can't actually see how it adjusts at the moment, but I'll have a play and report back. Well, I've just tightened up the alternator belt. Still confused. I spoke to my mate and he said could be earths, could be battery. This was an emergency battery because when we bought the van there was a battery that had been depleted for I don't know however long, so I wanged that one in there, but it's a bit of a bodge because it's got little bits of copper between the battery and the leads, because the terminals on that are smaller than the van wants. I really do need to buy a new battery for anyway, a correct size one, so I think I'm going to invest in a new battery anyway because I needed to do that. Just keep an eye on it. The other thing that's been suggested by my esteemed colleague is that I should check all of the earths and just clean them off, make sure that the body to battery and the engine to body earths are all okay. Look at that, I've just made it look even nicer. So I'm going to have a quick flirt around look underneath for them. Yeah, it did get its MOT obviously, and one of the things that came back was that the wheel bearing on that side was a bit loose, so I'll jack it up and reseat that bearing as well. Or maybe it's that side, I can't remember. I'll have a look at the MOT sheet. Just for well, I went all high pitch then, but anyway, just so you know, it wasn't my bodgery. That is what both of the battery terminals are like. So I think I'm going to purchase some more like this. This my buddy bought for Dotty. It's a bit small for this type of terminal, but the other one he had was the right one. So I'm going to get me a couple more of these, and then they can go on, and then that's part of the battle. I mean, that is just stupid. That's all back together again. Everything's cleaned up with sandpaper, nice and clean and bright. I've checked the earths, or the terminations between the block to chassis earth, which is down there. You can just see it here, and the battery to the chassis, which is down there. Both of them, I haven't actually taken them off and cleaned them because I've checked them with a meter. There's basically no resistance, so that means they're good, and they're still covered with delivery wax. Well, not delivery wax, but some sort of waxy coating, so there isn't any corrosion in there, which is pretty impressive. The whole of the inside of this has been painted in some sort of wax from new, and that's why this fan has lasted so well. If you peer in here, that kind of apron tray thing, that's usually completely missing. The bulkhead is usually completely gone down there, and this is all mint. So while I have it in my hand, while it was in front of me on my desk in the workshop, I'm going to just shove some more anti-corrosive wax in and around those problem areas, just to keep the rust at bay. This is UC underbody clear, so it's for the underside of the vehicle, but fuck it, it's going to work in here too. Get it in. There we go. Lovely stuff. I'm just planning on drowning all of these seams in the hope that this van will last forever. Also smells nice. Right, this will take a while, and I'll probably run out of this can before I do it all, but meh, never mind. That side's done. This side I've just pulled the air pipe out, and again you can see just how clear it is. It's just lovely, so I intend to keep it that way. I've now ran out of goop. I've emptied that can, so I'll have to do a bit more when I've ordered some more in. Wheel bearing time. This is the original driver's handbook for an LDV 400. It's not from this van obviously, because this is a DAF 400, but it's the same vehicle, and in here it gives you the actual procedure for doing front wheel bearing end float. So essentially, slacken hub nut, spin the hub while it's spinning, retighten the nut using a suitable torque wrench set to 5 foot-pound. That's chuff all or nothing, so I don't even know if I've got one that's that weedy. Stop the hub spinning and slacken the nut. Tighten the nut finger tighten only. So basically you're setting the bearing down, backing it off. Tighten the nut finger tight only. Locate the nut retainer, blah blah blah. Check the end float is correct using an accurate dial gauge. Adjust if incorrect. End float should be 0.05 to 0.13. I do have a dial gauge. I'll go and see whether I can arrange it in such a way as to measure it accurately. On the other side, the side that worked, I just did it by feel, like the usual thing of wanging it in, then cracking it off slightly and just checking it. So I might jack it up in the air, see how wobbly it feels, because it was only an advisory, it didn't actually fail, and then go find my dial gauge and have a play. I'm going to try and set the camera somewhere so you can see what the play is. Oh, and please ignore my super girly hairband thing. It's been installed for practical rather than appearance reasons. You can feel it and hear it more than you can actually see it. But yeah, it is loose, so I'm going to wang that wheel off and fiddle around for a bit. I probably won't bother doing the dial gauge thing. I'll probably just do what I did on the other side. I don't want it too tight because it'll just fuck the bearing. I don't want it too loose or I'll have a tiny bit of slack. So I'm just going to nip it up, back it off, and then try and eliminate that play without going too tight on the bearing. Just for illustrative purposes, without the wheel on, there's no perceivable play whatsoever because you just don't have the leverage, which is probably why I didn't spot it. But basically, it's only very, very slightly loose, which is probably why it was only an advisory. But I will try and nip it up. I can't work out how you would mount a dial gauge and where exactly you measure the end float. I presume it's off this face here and you just put it forwards and backwards, but that's more precise than I'm able to achieve here, so I'm just going to do it as I see fit. That's all done and back together. End float I didn't check properly, but I've basically done that nut up to the absolute bare minimum, to which there's apparently no play. But when I mean literally a hair until I think there's just about no play. The tight might still be a tiny bit, but I'd rather have that than have it too tight and wreck the wheel bearing. So that is going to be the end of today's video. Not really a lot else to report. Longer term, I'm going to do more about the rust, but that's for another day. I've got other stuff to do. So see you later. It's the end of the day, but before it actually gets towards the point where I can't do anything, I wanted to have another poke at this windscreen. Basically, when it got replaced, I've noticed it leaks, whereas previously it didn't. Part of the reason is I don't think it sits very well up here, but I can't fix that. It just doesn't want to sit tight to the top of the roof there. It's not leaking from the outside, it just seems to be on occasions. It doesn't do it all the time, which is the other weird thing. You get a little puddle in this tray and then a drip onto here, which is annoying. So I was going to stuff it full of butyl again, but that's messy and horrible. So I've bought myself this stuff, Captain Tolly's Creeping Crack Cure, and this is something that uses capillary action, so it'll kind of wick into any areas where it can get and then dry off. So you're meant to use it sparingly, drip it into cracks and crevices, and it seals them. I'm going to have a go with this first and hope that it works. If it doesn't, then I'll have to come back and use a butyl, or worse still, take the screen out, put it back in again, but I don't really want to do that. So we'll give this a whirl, and next time it rains, hopefully it'll be dry. It says use sparingly. I don't really know what that means. I am just going to open up this seam and then dribble it in, sort of following the screwdriver along. I won't be able to film this, but I just hope it does something. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It is seriously thin, and I hadn't taken that into account, so when I poured it in here and then started following it down, I looked out and it was already pissing out the bottom there, and it hadn't even made its way out of the seal, so it's obviously gone in and then popped out the bottom. Made a lovely mess and a lot of wastage. So the bottle is accurate, you only need a tiny little bit. So if you're doing this yourself, don't piss your money away by pouring gallons of stuff in there, because you probably just don't need it. I think it's going to be one of those things where you need a couple of light applications is as good as one thick heavy one. Yeah, well, I find myself in the unusual position of looking forward to it raining, just so I can see what's happened. I think I've got probably at least half a bottle, probably 2/3 of a bottle left. Yeah, I have. So yeah, hopefully we'll have a leak-free van.